more or less 1 hour 20 minutes. 1 hour, right? Okay. For the speakers to present their topics, and then we will go for question and answers. Before we continue, I would like to introduce Pak Rusman Heriawan. He is chairman of Supervisory Board of Palm Oil Fund Agency. He is also advisor for Indonesia Sustainable Palm Oil Forums. It is a multi-stakeholders forum led by the governments. Pak Rusman will have a presentation to show what is the role of Palm Oil Fund Agency in the implementation or supporting the implementation of the national action plans which Ibu Musdalifah just mentioned in her remarks. I think I will give the floor to Pak Rusman first. Pak.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to continue what the Bu Musdalifah, the deputy, already gave opening remark in this session. The topic is the role of Palm Oil Fund Management Agency in the National Action Plan Sustainable Palm Oil Implementation. As we know, the Indonesian is the big producer of palm oil in the world. And then the trend of the production will be increasing year by year. And then by 2025, the production will touch 55 million ton CPO. But I should inform you that this is not because of land extension, because we have president regulation on president interaction on moratorium. So no more land for palm oil. The increasing of the production because of the increasing of productivity by using the good seed and good agricultural practices. And in the right side, we can see Indonesia have around 54% of the oil palm production in the world. Next. This is just like public concern about the climate change. Hope to be contributed by palm oil plantation. Indonesian palm oil, I do believe that Indonesian palm oil sector will contribute much to climate action by at least 4 part of the concern in our Indonesian public. One is the smallholder replanting program, especially for the smallholder. And the second is the forest fire prevention management, including people participation for the forest conservation. The third is implementation of biodiesel, because we believe that biodiesel will be better than just conventional fuel from the fossil. And then the fourth is the use of palm oil for the electrifying 1.4 million households in the rural area. Next. This already mentioned by Ibu Musdalifah, the deputy. Our concern, general challenges for the palm oil in smallholder is low productivity. Low productivity rate due to the good agricultural practices, knowledge, and uncertified seed. Low number of government extension worker dedicated to the independent smallholder. The second is the lack of smallholder data. Data is important, so I think smallholders should be having the good data, one data for smallholder. The third is the illegally issues on the smallholder land. And then in the right side, we can see again the National Action Plan for the Sustainable Palm Oil. We have five main components. One is the strengthening, coordination, and infrastructure. Strengthening data mean that we agree to all stakeholder in Indonesia should have one data for all. Second is improving smallholder capacity and capabilities. It's important because the productivity in smallholder is far away from the corporation, the big company. It's a big gap about the productivity between the smallholder and the company. The third is environment management and monitoring. For governance, as the topic in this session, government and conflict mediation. And then the fifth component is the CPO certification and market access. Next. This is our concern in the smallholder. Very interesting because it belongs to smallholder. One is the need for data on smallholder and mapping their farm location. Yeah. To assist the smallholder, which one, who the smallholder should be getting the support from the government. Awareness on the use of the certified seedling, the need to establish and strengthening smallholder organization. It's also weak in the field, about the government organization, the smallholder organization, and then improving the role of private sector in mentoring extension officer for their smallholder partner, like strategic partnership between the big company and smallholder. We ask the big company to assist, to support smallholder. Become bigger together, and then become the responsibility together. Then conducting good agriculture practices training session periodically at the provincial and district level. Carrying out an extension on GAP principle of smallholder, and last but not least is educate smallholder on environment conservation. Next. Now I move to introduce you about the new agency. New agency we call the Palm Oil Fund Agency, established by government in 2015. The task of the duty of the agency is to collect and manage fund to support palm oil industry and development in achieving sustainable palm oil. This new agency, we collect fund from every ton of CPO exported, and then we transfer the fund to the smallholder, like cross subsidy. Next. The mission, the strategic role of the agency, the mission of the agency is one, is market development and stabilization, oil palm replanting, especially for smallholder, infrastructure and farmer environment, empowerment and human resource development, then research and product development, and last is the promotion and advocation. This is the next. This is the last page. I present to you is the link between the NAP, National Action Plans for Sustainable Palm Oil, and the mission carried by Palm Oil Fund Agency. You can see here. I don't know. Ada itu? Enggak ada. The left side is National Action Plan for Sustainable Palm Oil, 5 components. released by Presidential Instruction number 6, 2019. The right side is the presidential regulation established the palm oil fund management. And then we can see a lot of link between the mission carried by the palm oil fund agency and also the action, the program within the National Action Plan. So the conclusion of these two things in my presentation is both carrying two keywords. One is pro-smallholder, left side and right side, same. Yeah, the mission is support smallholder, and then the second, the keywords is guarantee to the sustainable palm oil. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Rusman. Now I would like to invite Ibu Diah Suradiraja. Ibu Diah is a Senior Policy Advisor of Yayasan Kahati or Indonesian Biodiversity Foundation. She will update us on the governance of palm oil sectors, the opportunity and the challenges. Floor is yours, Bu.
Thank you. Thank you, Ibu Tri. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I would like to continue from Ibu Musdalifah speak about what the Indonesian concerns have the sustainable palm oil policies, and then also continue with Pak Rusman saying about, because in the we just have the President instruction about national palm oil, national action plan in sustainable palm oil. So I think if you see, there is four things that is very important to see the sustaining in the palm oil advantage in Indonesia. The first is communicate to the progress of ISPO, Indonesian Sustainable Palm Oil Implementation, and its contribution to the sustainable and low carbon development. We communicate with minimal two forum in EU, Indonesian EU SIPA, just finished last night. And then in the partnership of CPOPC, it is the producing countries to increase the competitive advantage to sustainable palm oil. And then the second is increase the contribution to sustainable palm oil to the local development in minimal in 22 provinces in synergy with the national agenda on locating the SDGs, as Ibu Mus mentioned. And then the third is increasing the benefit on the environmental, especially to the protection of forest ecosystem and the biodiversity, reducing carbon emission, and the prevention of disaster because the human activity. And then the last is increasing the benefit of people's life, especially in conclusion of palm oil farmers, local, indigenous community resiliences, poverty elevation, community health, and gender equality. The member of the authorities for the Indonesian sustainable palm oil is under coordinating Minister for Economic Affairs, the chairman, and then Ministry Agriculture, Minister of Environmental and Forestry, Minister Agrarian and Special Planning, and Minister in Industry and Minister of Trade. The authority under the SPO for those minister is formulate the policies for development of ISPO certification system, supervise and evaluate the implementation of ISPO certification system, and then we established already the new standard, and then we still waiting president to be signed in the president decree, and then establish the ISPO certification committee. I think in the new ISPO, because new ISPO is the instrument to revamp the governance of Indonesian sustainable palm oil, and then there are the advisory board of ISPO, because we need the policy for the development of traceability assurance system, the ownership, and then the use of ISPO trademark to increase competitive advantage in certification palm oil products. And then evaluate and communicate the actual contribution of the certificate sustainable palm oil plantation and industry to achieve the sustainable and low carbon development target. It is very important things that because when we talk about the sustainability standard, everyone can see we have many schemes of the sustainability standard. But to ensure that new ISPO is one instrument that Indonesia having principle and criteria to sustain the palm oil industry and development. And then strategic direction for ISPO committee as the owner of ISPO certification system to improve and maintain the credibility on the implementation of the system. It's very important that the criticism of the current ISPO system is just about the governance. And then in the new ISPO, we revamp how the ISPO governance under the Ministry of Agriculture will improve the mechanism how to implement and getting the certificate of ISPO. Yeah, this is what the new ISPO system development. Because we know that now with the new policy about the ISPO is mandatory not for industry or plantation. It is including for the smallholders. And then we know that for the smallholder to comply, to fulfill the standard is still need time. And then under the new ISPO, we give the 5 years for smallholder to preparation to comply the ISPO certification. And then the government also have discussed and then develop the grading and readiness mapping system in the new proposed ISPO implementation to give incentive with the service and capacity building for businesses, unit officer, and palm oil plantation to obtain ISPO certification. If you see if the grading, it is, all the unit of the palm oil plantation, including smallholder, have to register to government, and then the government will pay the grading that each one who is the red in the red is not yet ready to many things that they should revamp or improve, and then the yellow range is maybe 50 or 60% they already comply to the standard, and then the green one is ready to the ISPO. We hope that in the 5 years, all of the unit and smallholder, all of the plantation and smallholder already comply to the ISPO. I think it's not easy process, but we are starting under National Action Plan already for the preparation. It is for long-term target. As I mentioned before, that with rational grading system application for the palm oil corporate, hopefully the first target for registration of all private plantation, plasma, and smallholder will be achieved. Is this the target? I think if you see the target, this look like ambitious process, but we will work with this long-term target through the under the National Action Plan, and then I think we hope that in 2024 we will fulfill this target. What the opportunity and challenge? We're still waiting. We hope the President regulation will sign soon, because we already prepare for the all instrument, and then under the Ministry of Agriculture also prepare for instrument for the implementing if the President sign. We still waiting. We hope that end of this year, Bu, maybe. And then ISPO will be an instrument to revamp the industry and smallholder to fulfill the sustainability standard. If okay, and then what our challenge now? Is this about the palm oil inside forest area? We have consolidation data that now still we have 3.4 million hectare of 14 million hectare of palm oil plantation are in forest area. We now, especially in the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, working in the how to solve the problem. Now we are in the discussing about how the step to have to solve the problem. And then palm oil cover in forest area have not received forest area release decision from minister. And then if you see the type of the forest that the palm oil already there, we have the data in detail. So the team, the small team, the strengthening team, now working in the how to solve this problem each by each, because we already have the typology of smallholder operate palm oil in forest area. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Is this okay? And then several region major have strong commitment to implement President instruction on moratorium. The obstacle in this absence of the relevant policies such as implementation guidelines and technical guidelines or roadmap in this moratorium implementation, because it is the government commitment to stop for giving the new permit for the oil palm plantation in whole area, not only for in the forest area, but in the whole area. So also smallholder productivity is still low. This is why Pak Rusman saying that palm oil fund body is working on the smallholder, and then also in we got the Indonesian planning for next 5 years, also focusing to the smallholders, smallholder productivity, because we see that it is very potential for Indonesia in the palm oil sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Budia, for
And
your
one
presentation.
thing, if you interesting to see what the data in detail that I'm presenting, in the front of this uh, reception, there are the book about the palm inside resolving the palm oil invention inside forest area. You can take. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Budia, for your presentation. Now I would like to call for last but not least presenter, Mr. Pietro Paganini. He's a adjunct professor in business administration at Temple University of Philadelphia. I think he will present something different from the two previous speakers. Yours, floor is yours, please.
Selamat siang, Ibu Mu. Selamat siang. Good evening, everybody. I'm not Indonesian, so I cannot talk about Indonesian national matters. I want to talk about palm oil free from palm oil and the fact that palm oil is apparently, for some Europeans, very bad for the environment and very bad for health and very bad when it comes to social rights. So till 10 years ago, I was unaware what palm oil was. You know, I knew about olive oil, I knew about sunflower, I knew about canola, and very little about palm oil. But then I started seeing all these negative claims about palm oil, so I started, you know, investigating where these claims were coming from and whether they were true. It's a, let's say, 6 years long work. Today I'm going to present a part of this, and I tell you it's going to be a lot of slides, but very quick slides. I'm going very quickly and moving through the slides. If you have any questions or if you want to have any in-depth analysis, I can take it later or in another day or by email. I said palm oil is supposed to be bad for health and environment, but after so long work, I could say that it's a very healthy, nutrition, and safe ingredient. 4 billion of people worldwide, because billion of people worldwide are using palm oil. And it's also a global benchmark for sustainability. It provides millions of jobs, and this is an important fact. And it enhances the condition and the prosperity, and it fosters also investment and innovation. My research and my team research goes through 3 different steps. In the first one, we started investigating the negative sentiment about palm oil that is very strong here in Europe, as I will show you later on. I've been focusing on the claims, you know, the one you find on food labels, the fact that palm oil is bad. And we found out that these are deceiving consumers, giving a negative image to consumers about palm oil. And then replacing palm oil is not worth. This is the last part of our study where we found out that there are unintended consequences to the boycotting of palm oil. In other words, you take away palm oil because you say it's bad, but when you replace palm oil, you're doing even worse to the environment and to the health. And this is a part of the final work we are doing, and it's still under development. Okay. First of all, and this is let's say a preface, we have to recognize, and this is a matter of fact, that there is a commercial war that is, you know, part of business in a way, I would say. But in this commercial war between different oils, and not just between different oils, but also among food producers and retailers, food producers and retailers. And the message that comes from this war is that palm oil is harmful, and this is something we have been investigating. It's unsustainable, and therefore we take it away because it's bad for the environment. And it's also unethical. In other words, there are issues related to human rights. And if it comes to that, I'm not going into details, but I can provide a lot of information. It's been accused of being cancerogenic and contains a lot of saturated fats that are bad for health. It's accused of being unsustainable, and of course, it has implication with human and social rights. So let's see what is the impact of this negative campaign that we have in Europe, and I will provide some numbers on the use or the consumption and import of palm oil in Europe. This is the import of palm oil in Europe when it comes, as you can see here, for biodiesel, for food use. This is the total, and this is for biodiesel, palm oil consumption and import in Europe, and the blue one is for food purposes. If you look at the import in France, you see that technical uses have been declined starting in 2013 when there has been a negative campaign against palm oil. The same for Germany, but when it comes to about food, there is lower acquisition and import of palm oil for food use. Meanwhile, the one for technical use remain stable. In Spain, instead, where we are right now, there is an increase of import of palm oil for technical uses. So we're talking about biodiesel, and not just biodiesel, but generally biodiesel. And it's growing also when it comes to food. Where we have instead a decline, a sharp decline, and this is where I'm going to focus on, is in Italy, where there has been a decline in acquisition, in import of palm oil for food use. And Italy is also the country where there is the strongest anti-palm oil sentiment in Europe. Now, let's see some of the consequences in Europe in terms of import, and we see that Italy has reduced of 34.5% the import of palm oil, and 60% was coming from Indonesia, and 40% was coming or is coming from Malaysia, that, as you know, are the two main producers of palm oil. Now, let's look for a moment at what this negative campaign is generating in Europe. And I will be very quick. I have a lot of data, but I'm not going through all of them. Otherwise, tomorrow you will still be here with me. But you see that where you have a high number is a negative perception. So when it comes to health, when it comes to the environment, and when it comes to social rights, you see that the perception, the negative perception, has been dramatically increasing in Europe, in most of countries, including Spain, where this research has started in the past years. And again, I'll be happy to share this information, so you can take a picture, but I'll be able to share this information as well. If you look at here, you see that 25 Italians consider palm oil bad for health, even worse in France, in Spain, and Germany. Meanwhile, if you go in the US, in the Anglo-Saxon world, the perception of palm oil is not as negative as it is in the rest of Europe. Actually, it's not negative at all. Here, and this is an interesting data when we are here in a conference about the environment, where the main concern for Europeans when it comes to palm oil is not really linked to the environment, but it mostly linked to health and the impact that palm oil might have on the health and a little on the environment. Very interesting among all the data we have is that when people are asked whether they know how palm oil has been replaced, so what has been used instead of palm oil, the majority of them in the main 4 countries in Europe, and I'm excluding England already, is they have no clue. So if you ask them, you know palm oil has been taken away? Yes. Do you know what is replacing palm oil? They have no idea. But, interesting, they know it's a marketing trick. So if you say, you know that palm oil has been taken away, do you know that they claim it's bad? Do you believe in this? They say, no, it's marketing. It's a marketing trick that's being used to, in a way, push us to purchase this specific power. How is this happening? It's happening through what we call the free claims. So Europe is obsessed, and here we can talk for another 2 days, is obsessed with free claims. Free from sugar, free from gluten, from carbohydrates, and so on. And the same is for free from palm oil. Of course, that is one of the highest trend in food industry right now. And here you have some example of products that are excluding in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Germany, and now also in the Nordic country, palm oil. And here I'm just focusing on Italy because it's the country where I come from, but I can also show other data. This is the increase of sales of products that have taken away palm oil. And you see it's a substantial increase that has been, of course, slowly growing in the past year. We have not yet data from 2018, 2019. So our research goes in 3 steps. I'll be very fast in the first 2. The first thing we started with is about health. I know this is not a conference about health, but just to show you the type of work we have done, we started comparing saturated fats. In other words, the industry argue we taken palm oil away because it contains a lot of saturated fats. Saturated fats are bad. Therefore, a product without palm oil is better than a product with palm oil. We did a very simple research. We basically analyzed the majority of products that are available on shelves in Italy. We're doing the same in Spain as well. And we came up, I'm not using the brands, of course, but we demonstrated, as you can see here with the blue, that products containing palm oil, by accident, they have less saturated fats than products that do not contain palm oil. And this is very interesting, I would say. And here's the same. You see products that are containing palm oil have less saturated fats than products that do not contain or have taken away palm oil. So the conclusion is 75% of products that do not contain palm oil have not improved saturated fats, and 20% have no significant improvement. It means 0.1 gram of saturated fats less. What is the conclusion of the first step? The conclusion of the first step is when it comes to health, if you buy a product that do not contain palm oil, the claim that has been used is deceiving consumers. In other words, is misleading the consumer. It's telling them the product is better, but the product is actually absolutely not better. Then, since we have some, of course, debates, and some food companies told us we did not take away palm oil because of health, but we did it because of sustainability. In other words, the impact that palm oil has on the environment. And of course, some years ago I had some doubt because, you know, you read the news, you see the fires, also in Indonesia sometimes. And so we started making, you know, asking us, why is palm oil bad for the environment? And we came up, you know, with images about deforestation, the orangutan, and, you know, the social justice. And sorry for the images disappear somehow. And also we look at the social responsibility report of some companies, and we noticed that some companies that have taken palm oil away, they were actually using 100% of sustainable palm oil, certified as sustainable palm oil, and only 28% of other oils, sunflower in this case. And they took away palm oil to use a not certified as sustainable alternative oil. So we have been using and I will be fast, sorry, we can go into details later on. I've been using some of the data and the evidences that are out there. I'm not an expert in, you know, on the environment, so we took data, we took reference, we did a very extensive research. And when it comes to the land use, palm oil you see as the little or the least use of land in terms of productivity. We use the life cycle assessment, okay, all data available online or in public libraries or in publication, and we found out by comparing all the different factors that palm oil is basically the most sustainable. So in other words, you take away something that is considered and certified as sustainable, also looking at data, and you replace it with something that is considered less sustainable. So we have applied this model to the products that you have on the shelf, by the one we saw earlier, and by comparing them, the ones that have palm oil, the blue ones, the ones that you can see here, have a lower level of saturated fats in terms of impact on health, but also in terms of land usage, they use less land. So palm oil plantation use less land. So in other words, a biscuit has a lower impact on the environment than a biscuit that do not contain palm oil or has decided to take palm oil away. So this was the second step of our research. When we published this, particularly in Italy, we had a presentation in Brussels as well. There was some concern because obviously food companies didn't know what to say anymore. They said, well, we did it for health, but they were wrong. We did it for the environment, but they were wrong too. So the third step was, okay, let's see what is the impact of the replacement. If you take palm oil away, what is the impact that you have on the environment? And we came to the fact that some companies basically told us we did it because we needed to sell more. We needed to attract and capture consumers. But what we found out is that when you replace palm oil, you are going to have a heavier impact on the land use, you are going to have a heavier impact on forestation, and you are not going to help creation of jobs, and as well, you are not going to make money. That's what we told them as well. You are not going to make money. So, again, I'm going fast, and apologize me, but I have a lot of things to say, but again, I'm happy to start later on. So we started analyzing the alternatives of palm oil. And here you have some alternatives. Again, I'm not going into detail. And of course, particularly in Europe, you can't use some of these alternatives. So the alternatives you have at palm oil are the rapeseed, the soy, the sunflower. And most companies, particularly in Italy, are using sunflower instead of palm oil. And in terms of food, if you're not, you don't have much knowledge in food, this is the point of the heating point. Palm oil has a higher heating point, so it's much better in the cooking process, let's say. So when it's about cooking, palm oil is considered to be better than any other oil because it has a very high level of cooking point. At the same time, we might say that this is also linked to other factors in production of contaminants and so on, but this is something we are not going to discuss today. We also look at the price. And one of the reasons why people buy more palm oil, or they were used to buy palm oil, it was because the price of palm oil has been very low. Now we know that the price of palm oil is hiking again, but till 2019, the price of palm oil has been very low. Meanwhile, the price of other commodity was much higher. So obviously, who abandoned palm oil abandoned something cheap and took something more expensive. The question is, if you buy something more expensive, how is this affecting the price of the food product at the very end? We look at the productivity level, and this again are public data, and we found out, of course, that palm oil has a much higher productivity per hectare, yield per hectare. So in an hectare of palm oil plantation or oil palm plantation, you can produce much more oil compared to any other vegetable oil. It means again that in order to obtain the same quantity of oil, you need more land with other oils, and this should be already a matter of concerns. In fact, high yield, there is a very low energy consumption, and there is a very low use of water compared to other crops. There is also a fact that this is world data. If you look at the production of palm oil, million per hectare, you see the palm oil is the one together with soy oil that had an incredible increase in production. And if we look at the increase in production, is also the increase in consumption. The world, not just Europe, the world is consuming a lot of palm oil. That means also it's convenient to produce palm oil. So people don't produce palm oil because they don't like the planet. They produce palm oil because it's convenient to produce palm oil in terms of productivity factor. Then we started looking at what we call the unintended consequences. And this is a key question. A key question that organizations like WWF and Greenpeace have been looking into as well, and we basically reached the same conclusion, is that if you take palm oil away, your consequences are maybe unintended. You want to save the planet, but you don't save the planet at the very end. Let's start, and this is where we focus on, it's Italy, because that's my country. We have data about other countries, but we mostly focus on Italy, because it's the one where there was the most decrease, or the radical decrease about consumption and import of palm oil. Why? Because companies, as I show earlier, they refused to use palm oil, or they stopped using palm oil. Particularly in 2014, where the campaign against palm oil started very aggressively, And in 2016, when the European Food and Safety Agency stated that palm oil contains some contaminants, as many other oils, but more than other oils. And that news was an excuse for many companies to abandon palm oil. This is the loss, or let's say this is the consumption of oils in Italy. As you can see, the consumption of palm oil in Italy is below zero. In other words, people are using other oils, the blue, the yellow, and the green one. Meanwhile, palm oil consumption is going below zero in terms of input. And then we said, okay, if you have stopped using and consuming palm oil, still she says I have 2 hours. Okay, I can go on. She says 2 hours. We did something. We did a little game. We said if you were buying, let's say, 100 liters or tons of palm oil, and now you have replaced that 100 tons, hypothetically, how much this is impacting on the environment. And here we have interesting data. We see that there is a less land use of palm plantation, but there is a much more use of land for other crops. So let's say you were using 10 hectares to produce palm oil, now you're using 100 hectares to produce soy or sunflower. So you're using more land than before. And in terms of jobs as well, because if you know that there are approximately 5 employees or 5 workers per hectare in the palm oil plantation, there is one around 200 hectares for soy. So if you abandon palm oil, it's like you're going to kill jobs in the palm oil industry. Meanwhile, you're adding few jobs in other crops. And we did this game considering past years. So we went to companies and say, look, that if other countries were not buying the palm oil you're not buying, this would have been your impact on jobs. So in 2014, Italy or Italian food producing companies that have abandoned palm oil would have impacted for almost 165,000 jobs around the world in palm plantations.
Excuse me, Pedro.
I'm done. Very briefly, we did this in terms of sales. And I'm not going into details, but the result in terms of sales is that companies that have abandoned palm oil have not made any money. The sales level remained the same. The volume of products without palm oil increased because people abandoned palm oil, but the sales per brand remained the same. Only one company made more money, sold more, but majority of companies didn't sell anything more. So the conclusion is very, very simple. By boycotting palm oil, there is a negative impact on the environment. There is not a positive impact on the environment. There is a negative impact on the consumer because the prices went up. There is less investment and less innovation in those countries that produce palm oil that have a great challenge, and the challenge is the one of productivity. So producing even more per hectare. This is my contacts. So I know I went very quick through my presentation. I'll be happy to share and to discuss, and if you disagree, also confront ourselves. And otherwise, I'm here for the next 2 hours. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pedro. Ladies and gentlemen, look like 1.5 hours is not enough for the 3 presentations, so I'm not going to summarize. Time is very short. I think I will take 2 questions from the floor. Please address to whom you would like your presentation, your question to be answered. Yes, the ladies over there. Only 1 question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rizka. I'm working for Kruha. I've been researching into RSPO members for the last 8 months, and we find out that there is a lot of violations. Child labor, 1. pollution from the fertilizer to the river, we find out that the free chlorine level is triple than the national standard. It's like that you pouring 3 bottle cups of bleaching into the water, and the water being used by the community. So don't say that it's giving a good environmental impact. The third one is that there is a lot of problems with the land grabbing issues. So there is a lot of problems in palm oil, even in the RSPU members. The other thing is about that the palm effluent was discharged illegally. We find out that 2 months ago, Duta Palma subsidiaries pumping out from their ponds, effluent ponds to the river, and it kills a lot of fish. 3 months ago, hundreds of tons fish kills in the Sambas River, and people can fishing in the area. So that's not a good statement that palm oil is good for environmental. You should say that there's a negative impact and a good impact, but I don't see any good impact of the palm oil in here. Thank you.
You would like Petro to respond?
No, it's just a comment from me.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else from the floor? Yes, please, gentlemen.
Thank you. I'm Derek from Slovenia. I don't have any own research, so I just know what I read. I don't know. I just read and have some information. My question is, you said that you presented this in Brussels, and obviously this has been published. What is your expectation will have this, will be the influence of your findings? Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, yeah? So Petro will respond. No one questions.
Thank you. First, honestly, what we have seen here is what happens in Europe constantly. They make statements about things that don't work and then they disappear. I think and I believe that there are a lot of problems related to the palm oil industry, a lot. And I think it's good that there are NGOs denouncing this, and they should do it loud. But tell me an industry that does not have some issues. I come from a country that is a big producer of tomatoes, and I can tell you that the tomatoes industry has the same problem, or some of the problems that the palm oil industry has. By boycotting palm plantations, we are not saving the planet. We are actually killing the planet. The work should be of helping producing countries in fostering a sustainable production. The alternatives today, the alternatives to palm oil do not exist. There are no alternatives. The alternatives have worse impact than palm oil. If I think about the million Indonesians, Malaysians, and other countries, South America, Colombia, Guatemala, and so on, that are working in the industry, if you take palm oil or palm plantation away, what are they going to do? Living of air? I don't think so. So they would probably move to other type of plantations. I think that even Greenpeace, and I'm very grateful, and WWF and other NGOs have accepted this, and they support this, and they work to make countries like Indonesia, where there are a lot of problems, to improve. And I think you guys know this better than I do. And I think you should address these kind of concerns and make sure that where there is a problem, you go there and make sure that the problem somehow get fixed. And I know that in Indonesia there are a lot of problems, but I know that you have the strength. Of course, if Indonesia is left alone, they will never fix the problem. If the international community is working with Indonesia, the problem will be fixed. There is another point that I tell all the companies, and sorry for doing that, but when they say, well, there is deforestation, well, there are countries, I think about South America, part of Africa, where palm oil is produced, and actually there is no impact on biodiversity at all. I think about Guatemala, I think about Colombia. And actually, there is great thing to, engage the population, take them away from terrorist groups, from cocaine traffickers. So of course there are problems. But if you just say, oh, there is a problem, we pollute, and you run away, you're not going to solve it. You're just going to, run somebody else's interest. That's it.
Okay. Pak
Yeah,
Usman.
I just respond in general that eliminating the palm oil plantation from the producing countries like Indonesia is not solution. Yeah, because as you mentioned, that a lot of losses will be. But our challenges is how to manage better and environmentally friendly and then sustainability for palm oil. It is our challenges now. Not eliminating palm oil is not really solution for Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Rusman. Budia, would you like to make a short statement? before
Very,
closing?
very quickly. To be honest, I don't have many expectations. Europe has taken a direction that is driven by commercial interests. I just hope that people will have the chance to read more scientific-based information rather than big titles where palm oil is bad, salt is bad, sunflower is bad. I'm not here to say palm oil is better than sunflower. I'm here to say, looking at science, this is what it is. Then of course Europe has to, as Boo knows, I grow olive trees, only 50, and I produce little olive oil, only 100 liters. So that's what I do, because I will never do plant. But I think the work we have to do in this context is to provide information and to provide a debate, and even to come up and say, Indonesia, or in some part of Indonesia, we have this problem. The question is how we address this problem, how we solve these problems.
Thank you, Pedro.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we know what the problem in the field, but for me it's one thing that the government, that not only government but other Indonesia, we're starting to solve the problem. We have the effort. I think in the last 3 years, the effort of by multi stakeholders through the establishing the national action plan, it is one of the effort. And then I think you were right that we not only speak up in the forum, but see what happened in the field with we debate with the data. It's very important we debate the data and the fact finding.
Thank you. Ibu, would you like to say something before closing?
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, I would like just to respond to the girl who already mentioned about how palm oil, from her respect view. But for me, for us, we would like to improve all of our management of palm oil in the country. You can have a look from since 2007, we have already, established regulation to improve all of measures, all of regulation to achieve sustainability development in our country. To what her respects, and in my opinion here, why she left after she mentioned about that. It is not responsible. We don't have to listen what she talk about that. This is the one maybe who always mention about negative campaign, has already mentioned by Professor Paganini just now. That is the person who are not responsible person who always mention about the bad thing about our palm oil, the negative information about palm oil. The thing that we have the regulation, we already put the law enforcement for all people, all company who manage their plantation in the negative way. If they put fertilizer in their plantation and then go to the river, I think who produce the fertilizer? Who asked them to use the fertilizer. That is because our misinformation to our farmer, to our plantation. So what we have to do now, we have to improve. We put the regulation, we put the national action plan to improve all of negative manage on of our palm oil plantation. That what we now talk about, to working hard to improve the management of our palm oil, to assurance that palm oil sustainability we can achieve in the now and for the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Deputy. Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, I think we should close these sessions. But before, what importance from these sessions is that the government of Indonesia, considering the importance of palm oil industry for the country, keep putting effort in enabling environments to improve the sector despite the controversy of the commodity. Most important one is dialogue and collaborations for the better of the industry. I thank you very much for coming, and let's give applause to the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much to Ms. Tri Wijayanti for moderating the session and all of the honorable speakers. For all of the speakers, we have a token of appreciation from the Minister of Environment and Forestry, and I would like to invite Mr. Agus Justianto, the Chairman of Pavilion, to give out the certificate to all of the speakers. And also to Ms. Musdalifah Mahmud, I would like to invite you to the stage. And now we have a short photo session. Please give a round of applause to all of the speakers. Okay, thank you very much, and give a round of applause to all of us here. Thank you for being with us in the session of Strengthening the Governance of Indonesian Sustainable Oil Palm Plantation. That was very eye-opening session, and this concludes our session.